Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Unhinged. So I am super happy to say I finally got to go to a movie theater since the beginning of this pandemic. The AMCs in my area are back to being open, and I am an AMC A-list member, so I was very happy to finally see that movies are open again, that I have the ability, even though with limited capacity, to go to the theater and go watch some movies. This week I'll be going to check out The New Mutants, the long-delayed X-Men film that's supposed to be a X-Men horror slash kind of film. I really enjoyed New Mutants comic books growing up, or the ones that I read here and there. I'm not super familiar with those characters, but I'm definitely excited to check that movie out. It looks like it's going to be an interesting time and a very different kind of X-Men film. But today we're going to be talking about Unhinged, the first film that I got to see after this whole pandemic thing started. And yeah, right before the movie started, what I got to say, man, it was such a good feeling being able to walk through the theater again, get some popcorn, get ready to watch a movie, sit there and see this opening thing that they had at the very beginning before the trailer started, where they essentially said, "Welcome back to the movies." It says it right there on the screen, "Welcome back to the movies," and it felt so good. The theater was practically empty, which is something that's, bound to happen with some people not necessarily wanting to be out during this whole pandemic still, and the fact that it's limited capacity. There was probably about another 6 or 7 groups or individuals in the entire theater, and yeah, made it for a nice, intimate experience, made it feel like the days that I would go before to go watch movies, where I pick a random day and a random show time for a random movie that had already been out for a week or so, where I was able to kind of just be in there in a theater that was essentially empty. And that's essentially how I got to see Unhinged today. My girlfriend and I got to see it today, and we were super excited to be back in theaters. This film stars Russell Crowe as an unstable man who they essentially set up as this man who doesn't really do good with people who kind of treat him poorly or have any sort of attitude towards him. And they do hint at the fact that he just got out of a divorce not too long ago, or was in the process of a divorce, and he's kind of just as unhinged, obviously, unstable man. The main character in this film is played by an actress named Caren Pistorius. I've never seen anything that she's in, or at least if I have, I don't really know her. This was the first time that I ever got to really see her as an actress, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed her in this film. And I also enjoyed the person who plays her son in this film, Gabriel Bateman, who I did recognize from the Child's Play remake. He did a pretty solid job in this film. And the three that I mentioned, Russell Crowe, Caren Pistorius, and Gabriel Bateman, I think did a really solid job in this film. The performances, for the most part, are definitely one of the better parts of this film. And on an overall level, this film, for the most part, is your run-of-the-mill thriller, but I've had a really good time with it. So the basic premise of this film is you have this mother who's going through a divorce. She's taking her son off to school. She's got a lot going on. We learn that she, is very tight for money. She's going through a divorce. Things are in a really rough period of her life. And yeah, she ends up getting into a little confrontation with somebody on the road, played by Russell Crowe, this unhinged man. She ends up honking at him, just doing these really long honks. She was definitely having some road rage little moments with him. And he ends up pulling up next to their car at the next red light and essentially just demands an apology. She doesn't want to give him an apology, and he pretty much says that he's going to make her have the worst day ever. And from that moment on, you just have essentially this really creepy stalker type of film where you have this really psycho deranged man following this woman and trying to make her life a living hell. He ends up stealing her phone. He ends up hurting some people that she knows, killing some people that she knows. And yeah, that's the basic premise of this film. There's definitely a lot about this movie that's a little cliche. You guys have seen this kind of movie before. This isn't the kind of film that's kind of reinventing the wheel. I think that Russell Crowe, though, gives a really eerie and creepy performance in this film, and he does a really great job of playing this really deranged villain, this really crazy kind of guy that you don't want to fuck with. I felt like the message this movie was trying to give, and it was pretty on the nose at times, was really that you can't trust people and you really don't know who's around you at certain points in your life. There's even a little PSA moment in the dialogue where the son is looking at his mom's phone and she doesn't have a lock code on her phone or passcode to get in, and he goes, "You don't have a passcode on your phone?" And he goes, "That's kind of dangerous, Mom." And it's kind of just leaning into kind of foreshadowing what would happen later on, as well as it just being something that's supposed to just kind of lean into the fact that it is dangerous in this day and age. You never know who can get a hold of your phone and what ways they could use your phone. So I thought that was a little on the nose at times. And based on the opening credits that showed a bunch of other real life road rage incidents, even clips that you'll find on Facebook or on YouTube, are kind of melded together with some actual staged and filmed shots for this movie. It was kind of leaning into the idea that, road rage is a real crazy thing, and you really never know who you're gonna piss off, and sometimes it can lead to people just being complete maniacs on the road. And I'm sure that's something that we can all kind of relate with. You know I've done it plenty of times where I've kind of flicked somebody off, or I've kind of given somebody like the hands of, like, yelling at them through the window, and we're kind of looking at each other, and maybe they've chased me a little bit, or maybe they want to keep arguing, maybe they want to kind of speed up around to get in front of me and cause some problems, and I've just kind of sped off. And yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of times in those moments we all have this moment of pride, and we all kind of just want to say fuck you to whoever's in that car. But this movie just goes ahead and shows you that there are some crazy people in this world. You really never know who you're fucking with, and if they're crazy enough and persistent enough, it can be a bad time for you. There were some things about the way that this film was shot as far as the car chase sequences go, because of the nature of the film and the fact that it is a stalker film, and a lot of the film actually takes place in cars with him chasing her, or her chasing him, or her getting away from him, where it just felt like it was cutting back to a shot of her behind the wheel, a shot of him behind the wheel, a really plain shot of the road where one of them is changing lanes, or they're kind of changing lanes kind of quick, back to a shot of him, back to a shot of her, back to a shot of the road, maybe a shot from POV, but it's never like these really intense or crazy kind of stunt maneuvers as far as the cars or anything like that. In that sense, it felt a little bit more grounded, a little bit more realistic, but there was a moment where I thought to myself, okay, the way that this film is shot, or at least the way it's edited together, feels a little redundant at times, where it felt like some of the shots of the road and them just kind of swerving in and out of cars, and back to a shot of them, and back to a shot of this person, and back to a shot of this person, kind of felt like they weren't really doing anything super creative with the chase sequences, at least not in the way that I may have hoped they would have as the film progressed. Now, it's not to say I didn't enjoy the movie. I actually really did enjoy the film. I had a good time with it. I think it's a solid thriller film that I do recommend. I think the performances in this film were really well done, and by the end of the film, it was a predictable ride. There was a lot about the film that felt like I've seen this kind of movie before, but I enjoyed it. I felt like Russell Crowe gave a very eerie performance, and as the movie was going on, I definitely wanted to see him get his comeuppance, you know what I mean? I definitely wanted to see his villainous character kind of get his due, so that definitely happens, and again, it's kind of one of those movies. You've seen it before with the creepy guy, and you got the mother who's got to take care of her son, and she's going to kind of get herself through the situation to fight off the creepy, stalker guy, and we've seen the movie before, but I found it to be a good time. I enjoyed Russell Crowe's performance. I think this is a movie that will thrive on things like Hulu or Netflix. If it makes it to some streaming service, I definitely recommend it. Now, I think if you're a fan of movies like me, and you're just dying to get back into theaters, and you don't want to wait for some of the bigger movies like New Mutants, or the things that are going to be coming in the coming weeks, or maybe New Mutants doesn't even really interest you, I do recommend checking out this movie. I think it's worth going to check out in theaters if you want to. Now, if it's something that's not super interesting to you, but you are kind of interested in it, maybe wait to see it on video on demand or on some streaming service. But yeah, guys, that's going to be my thoughts on Unhinged. I really enjoyed being able to see Russell Crowe in this very creepy, eerie, just psychopath kind of role. I think he played it very, very well. Something that was also really interesting was, I don't know if he did it for the role or maybe he was just out of shape, but he's pretty hefty in this movie, and I'm a pretty chunky guy myself, but he was a pretty hefty guy in this movie, and it's kind of crazy to see Russell Crowe, the gladiator, kind of fat in this movie, but I feel like it kind of leaned into the aesthetic of the character that he was playing. So yeah, guys, that's going to be my thoughts on this movie. I am so excited to start reviewing new movies once again theatrically. I did a terrible job throughout this pandemic of keeping up with the new movies that were coming out on streaming services, but I'm definitely excited to catch up on some of the newer streaming service movies, or some of those that have already come out. Things like Marriage Story or Extractions, or The Old Guard, or that new Jamie Foxx movie called something Power something. I don't really know what it's called, but there's so many movies on so many streaming services that I'm super behind, and you would think that it'd be easier for me to watch those movies and get out new reviews for you guys, but I just kind of fell in this rut of reviewing older movies, and I've had a lot of fun doing that. I got to do a lot of collabs and all kinds of crazy stuff throughout this whole pandemic, and it's been a really fun experience to go back and do a lot of older reviews. But now that movie theaters are opening up once again, you guys can expect new reviews from new theatrically released films. New Mutants will be my next one after this. I'm definitely excited to start reviewing movies in theaters once again. And as usual, guys, hit that like button, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.